struggles
we, but
poorly
we
bad.
brought up Davis to LA like that's a done deal.
No, yeah,
And as of right now, roughly 24 hours before the trade deadline, it has not happened.
it hasn't
All
happened.
indications are that it's not going to happen.
Right.
Um, and the place that he, on paper, makes the most sense to go to is Boston in the offseason. Now, for everybody who doesn't know, they can't trade to Boston right now because of a rule in the NBA. You can't have two guys on the same on Kyrie Irving rookie type contract or whatever. I think they call it the Rose Rule. So they can't trade Boston
The what
now.
rule? The what rule?
The Rose.
The Rose? Who?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I just was wondering.
Yeah, that's who it is.
Okay.
That's who it's about. So,
Okay.
um,
Okay. Okay.
Malik Rose. So,
Every time I look up, every time I look up.
so he can't go to Boston right now, even though Boston has the best deal on the table. Do you think of the whole Boston situation? Because there's a lot of things. Kyrie Irving looking like he's not going to be in Boston, even though they fake newsed him a little bit. They said because he had a quote where he said, "I don't owe anybody anything." He was talking about reporters and people in the media and people with opinions. He wasn't talking about the Boston Celtics. That was pretty clear in the context of the whole interview, in my opinion, anyway. But still, he didn't have the same tone he had earlier in the year
Hmm.
when he was talking about I'll resign if you have me, Boston, Boston, Boston all day. He doesn't look like a guy who wants to stay there, despite the fact that, to his credit, he's all in on the court. He's playing his best basketball of his career. What say you?
I think that I think it really kind of comes down to, I mean, honestly, I think, you know what I think was really important? I think it was real the San Antonio Spurs taking a hard stance and the Toronto Raptors taking the risk of actually acquiring a guy who pretty much made it clear, I don't want to play for your team for a long time.
Hmm.
I think that was very important in the NBA. Now, what'll really kind of tell us the real impact of that is one, if whether or not the Toronto Raptors can win the NBA Finals, and then two, whether or not Kawhi resigns with them. Right?
Yeah, because winning the NBA Finals is, I don't want to say irrelevant, but that if that's your bar, you're an idiot because the
N-
Golden State Warriors are on the other side. And
No,
I'm talking about for
no,
people involved.
no. I don't mean reaching. I'm talking about winning the championship.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think I'm saying like Kawhi Leonard. If it's about basketball,
Hmm.
the difference between reaching and winning the NBA Finals versus the Golden State Warriors in your first year with a new coach and a team you've never played for, I think that's ridiculous. If we didn't win, especially if Kevin Durant leaves, then the situation changes because if you would, you're not talking about repeating it the way you
Hmm.
would if he stays. But getting to the finals and coming out of the East with very impressive teams in the East now, especially post Philly trade, if he walked away from that, that would be a sign that when I say I'm not staying, I'm not staying.
Exactly. Exactly. But see, my I guess my thing is for the Raptors organization and for their perception across the league, and even perception with fans. If they rented Kawhi Leonard for a year and he wins NBA Finals MVP and they win the championship,
Hmm.
even if he decides to leave, I still think that you can make a strong argument that they did the right thing. Now, if they don't win and he leaves, then it's going to look like you did the wrong thing. So my point in bringing that up is this is a pivotal time right now for teams taking the leap to say, I'm going to try to rent a guy. I'm going to give up tons of assets for a guy who has not committed to me and who I have every right to believe he's not going to commit to me. Because the first shoe that dropped with this is Paul George, right?
Yes.
Because it already happened. We already thought Paul George was absolutely going to the Lakers. Everybody thought that. People thought that the Thunder was crazy to give up assets for a guy who from Fresno says he's always been a Lakers fan. Everything's pointed to that. They won with
And,
that.
and yeah, and the Thunder look like they're going to be one piece away until they get a piece, or for the next 5 years. Like this looks like nice
Yeah,
job.
this looks like they did the right thing, right? So if this happens with Kawhi, I think that you will have a lot more teams. I think the Paul George thing is the reason why the Raptors did the trade for Kawhi, and I
Yeah.
think you'll see it even more if things go right.
So let me ask you something. If Kyrie Irving leaves, would it be good for Boston to give up what they have for Anthony Davis, in your opinion?
Honestly, man, with Boston, I understand who Anthony Davis is, and I get it. I totally understand what the pull and what the draw is, right? I totally get it. But Boston is so good that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I rip apart some of what I already have to try to just take the next step. Like, because they're already so good. You
Yeah.
already have one of the best top two coaches in the league on your sidelines, right? Perhaps the thing that they need is simply for Kyrie to move on and for them to then have the opportunity to replace him with someone who ultimately is more of a needle mover. Because here's the thing, as good as Kyrie is, and as talented as he is, and as much as he can score, and some of the strides he's made as a playmaker, he has never proved to be singularly a needle mover.
Yeah, it's interesting with Kyrie in Boston, right? You bring up a great point because there's a lot of evidence to say that Boston is better without Kyrie Irving. Even
Yeah.
though that doesn't make sense because, like you said, he's playing his best basketball ever. He's
Yes.
become a better playmaker. And I always say with young point guards, and because he's missed so much time, I think he still has a little more room to grow than if he'd been healthy all this time and really calcified into the player that he is. I think he is still learning and adapting. He's still in that phase. And he's still relatively young. Um, but that having been said, he still doesn't play defense. He gambles on steals, but he's not a guy who plays solid defense a lot of the time. And he's still not the best playmaker out there when
No.
it comes to point guards. Not even top 5, maybe
No.
not top 10.
I don't think he's top 10.
Yeah. So
Not
that's
in
not
that respect.
right, not in that respect. And the team does move the ball a lot better. The parts seem better when he doesn't play.
Mhm.
So the idea would be, well, if you got an Anthony Davis and blah, 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 but who do you give up? Does that really hurt you? My thing is this. If you pair Anthony Davis with Kyrie Irving, that I can see a lot of reasons someone would say that's a championship. We have those two guys and the Boston system and some complementary stuff. We just have too much firepower. And at the end of the day, in the East, you have to start thinking about how I'm going to beat Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Mhm.
You have to factor that into your life
Mhm.
because with Budenholzer out there, that's real. You know what I mean? They're on almost a 10-game win streak right now. They're like 9-1,
Yeah.
and it's not the first time they've been that way. They're holding at the first,
Yeah.
you know, we're at the
I mean,
trade deadline. They're first in the league.
even with Golden State on on this resurgence and charging, I give a lot of credit to Denver and to Milwaukee and to
Yeah,
Toronto for, I mean, well, Denver and Milwaukee especially for holding them off.
yeah.
You know,
And they've been playing well. That's the other thing is
yeah,
that people think it's just the Giannis show. No, that whole system makes everybody on that team a threat. They make the extra pass. They
yes, man.
defend. It's tough.
They,
So
I saw a play Eric Bledsoe made in transition a couple days ago,
mhm,
and it was really subtle, but you could totally see in the play that he made, and especially if you've watched Eric Bledsoe throughout his career, this dude is totally bought in to this concept. This team is totally bought into this concept. They know who they are. They know who Giannis is. They
yeah,
believe in Giannis. They believe in Budenholzer. They're dangerous.
they
They
are.
are
So
dangerous.
that having been said, in the Eastern Conference, I understand why anybody in the East would really, really want to acquire Anthony Davis because to beat Giannis, you need someone to balance out his output. And I don't think Kyrie's that guy. Kyrie's a great player, but he's a point guard. He's a little guy. And I think in a war between him and Giannis, I got my money on Giannis every single time. You give him Anthony Davis, now we're having a different discussion. That having been said, if Kyrie leaves, I don't think Anthony Davis is a great move for Boston. I think they just go with their plan that they had all along. You know, they have draft picks, they have assets. I think Gordon Hayward is going to turn back into Gordon Hayward, which will make him either a good player for Boston or an asset for somebody else. I don't think Boston is lost if they lose Kyrie and don't get Anthony Davis. I think what happens is they go back down to the 5th or the 6th seed for a year or two, and Ainge is going to find his way back to the top in a year or two, which is not a bad thing. Whereas if you get Anthony Davis and that's not the makeup of your team and you give up too much to get him, now you're stuck with that situation, particularly as the guy's injury prone. But I don't think we would be doing this discussion justice if we didn't ask you, my esteemed co-host, where you thought Anthony Davis would wind up. And before you answer, Chicago is not a viable answer. Chicago is not a legitimate response to that question.
Let me take my mic stem off of that. Every time I look up, this is going on in here. It's crazy. No, as much as I would like that, and I think that it makes some sense, I don't practically think that's going to happen. I really don't. I don't. I think that Anthony Davis winds up with the Lakers. Either way it goes, whether it's tomorrow or whether it is in the off season. I think that's what ends up happening, because I do not think that Danny Ainge will acquire someone who he doesn't think wants to be there, because especially not at the expense of giving up Jason Tatum, which is what almost certainly they will have to do. So I think the Lakers are in a send it all place. And it makes more sense because the Lakers' young core, while it does have some talent, alone, it is not ready to contend, and it's much further away from contending than Boston's young core is. And they also have an older star that they're trying to pair Anthony Davis with, which means that it creates more of a sense of urgency.
That's my issue with Boston. Outside of Al Horford, who they will replace at some point, the rest of their core is on like a 7 to 12-year window of competing. The Lakers need to compete within the next 4 years.
I think 2 to 3.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like within the next 4 years, right? Like after 4 years is kind of the limit of what will give LeBron James, greatest athlete of all time, in my opinion, most tremendous athlete I've personally ever seen, just in every category. So I'll give him an extra couple of years of being LeBron James over everybody. We'll give him some Tom Brady years, right?
Yeah.
Where you get a little extra,
which we've never seen in basketball, but
right. But we,
he's that dude.
If never seen, you get the never seen card, right?
Yep.
That's still 4 years though. After 5 years, he's going to be in a reduced capacity, and everything around him will have to be stronger. Not saying he still won't be competing for championships, but he's not going to be going at the clip that he's going. He's not going to control as much of the offense as he's controlling.
And he'll be playing 55 to 60 games.
Yeah, maybe. That could also be a possibility.
Yeah.
So they need to get going now. And so I think I'm with you, man. Boston, I don't think mortgaging your future for an oft injured star of Anthony Davis's type is worth it. If it was Kevin Durant, and there's an argument you could make that Anthony Davis is as good as Kevin Durant. I don't think so, but you can make an argument.
I don't really think that argument.
I don't think so. But the argument would be, you'd look at the numbers and you'd be like, well, his numbers are astronomical. But I'm not making that argument. But, it's the type of player that Kevin Durant is, though.
Yeah, it's what I call a needle mover, because some guys can put up stats and they're not a needle mover, Elton Brand used to put up 20 and 10s like 40 going north, but he wasn't a needle mover. You know what I'm saying, as a player, and that's really what you're looking at, and that's also what I call a trap player. You know, a lot of times you see a trap player, you see a guy, and some people can make the argument that DeMarcus Cousins is a trap player. He's
Yeah.
put up crazy numbers his whole career, but teams have never won.
Yep.
You know, so
And you know what it is more so to me, B, and I agree with your point here. It's not just that they've never won, it's that they didn't look better. And that's the thing for me. And there's one thing I'll forgive Kyrie Irving on. I do feel like Boston looks better in the last 2 minutes of the game with Kyrie Irving. They're more dangerous with Kyrie in the last 2 minutes. It's just that they're so much cleaner in the first 46 minutes.
Yes.
And with young players, that's important because the more touches those players get, the better they get. Which is really the issue for me with Kyrie Irving. He doesn't seem to like Jason Tatum. They don't seem to have a good relationship, and that's an alarm bell for me. At their ages, particularly because he could hurt Jason Tatum's development.
Yeah,
which you need.
Which or Jason Tatum is just going to simply go call Kobe.
Well, they're both friends with Kobe.
Yeah,
Kobe like both of them. They need to sit down on the table and figure that out. But you know, all that having been said, they don't look better, and I feel like, and I could be wrong about this, but this is just eye test. To me, when the Pelicans swept Portland, it felt like it was more because of Drew and Rondo than because of Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I mean, man, that playoff Rondo thing is real.
Oh yeah, Rondo's a very good NBA player right now. Like I'm tired of people poo-pooing Rondo. Like the Dallas thing was bad. But
I actually stopped like 2 years ago.
He's a very good NBA player.
That dude is he's deep. Yeah.
He's a basketball genius. He's still pretty quick. Excellent passer. He's gotten much better at shooting than people give him credit for. They act like he can't shoot.
They've been saying the same thing so long that they haven't stopped to pay attention to see that it's not the case anymore.
Correct. You can't just sag off Rondo and let him kill you from three. At some point, he was shooting like 37% this season.
No, he's still shooting like that.
37%. So no, that's all nonsense. Rondo is a very good player. I think the Lakers honestly would like to keep Rondo.
I know they would.
Going forward, I think LeBron likes playing with Rondo.
He loves playing with him. Yeah.
There's a special element with LeBron, Rondo, and JaVale McGee on the court. Then when I see the Lakers, I'm like, this could be something if y'all had better players, right? Yeah. Like if you just have Rondo, Klay Thompson, LeBron James, Kuzma, and JaVale McGee, I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, man.
You know what?
Yeah,
all
man.
Right.
Yeah, you know, because the thing about Rondo, and we'll move on after this. The thing about Rondo and having LeBron and Rondo, and why that would potentially give Golden State a problem, is because you need tempo controllers against Golden State.
Correct.
You need guys who can recognize a run and recognize a flood coming, and are able to slow the ball down, take control, and dictate several possessions in a row. And that's one of the reasons why Houston was giving Golden State a problem last year, because you had Chris Paul before he got hurt and James Harden able to do that. It's also a reason why Oklahoma City gave them some issues the year before when they had Durant and Russell Westbrook, because they had two tempo controllers as well. So that's something that's really important. And so I do think that would be pretty good. Now, we have talked a lot of basketball, and I have enjoyed it all, but we do more. So now let's talk a little, and we're going to come back to some basketball in some aspect. Well, actually, we'll do that for Ask Us Bro. So in case you guys haven't noticed, we kind of separated Ask Us Bro. It's got its own little separate time slot, and everything comes out on Friday. I should have said that at the beginning. Friday at 10 a.m., you'll see the full Ask Us Bro show, and then we cut it up into the segments moving forward. So just so y'all know.